As The Bad Batch Season 2 nears the finale, it has me thinking, what is the end game of the clones? I mean, they're clearly in the early stages of rebelling against the Empire, but where will they end up? It's clear that this season will likely end with maybe an attack on Mount Tantis, but what about the long term? What will the clones who are free from the Empire after this do? At this point, Rex and Echo have created a small network of clones, and they can clearly handle the Empire on a small scale. Their superior training and experience allows them to run laps around the Imperial troops, and since many of these clones recently served the Empire, they have a further edge because they know Imperial protocol. They know how to get ahead of the Empire. Even with these clear advantages though, the Empire is too big for a small network of clones to go head to head with them. Hunter even brings this up to Echo when he arrives on Pabu at the end of episode 14, which, by the way, do you think Pabu could be Scarif? I've noticed a lot of people saying that. Echo responds to Hunter, though, by telling him it's not about toppling the Empire, it's about fighting for the rest of their brothers. If you're new to Star Wars or just didn't know, the Rebels waged war against the Empire exactly this way. Small disconnected cells each fought their own fight against the Empire. Saw Gerrera, Cham Syndulla, Luthen Rael, and many others each fought a slow war of attrition against the Empire. Individual Rebel leaders knew that they could not topple the Empire on their own, but they still fought back in hopes that others would become aware of the Empire's treachery. Rex and Echo's network of clones is the most recent addition to this list of rebels. It wasn't until later that people like Bail Organa and Mon Mothma would begin connecting these cells to eventually become the publicly declared Alliance to Restore the Republic 2 years before the Battle of Yavin in A New Hope. By the time of the original trilogy, the rebellion had begun to wage direct warfare on the Empire. So back to my original question, where will the clones go from here? And we ask this question because they're not simply going to blend into the Rebel Alliance like the rest of Rebel cells. So the boring answer is that the story of clones and the clone rebellion is new. Beforehand, we were left to assume that the clones served the Empire until they simply faded from existence. But the Bad Batch is giving us a more satisfying story that will ultimately redeem the clones. And now, it's true, before this we knew some clones like Rex were able to remove their chips and find redemption on an individual basis. But the Bad Batch is seeking to redeem all clones on a bigger scale. I think that we can arrive at a more interesting in-universe answer though. Echo's words to Hunter remind us that the ultimate goal of the clones right now is to get their brothers free from the Empire's poor treatment. Right now they're being neglected, forced into retirement, arrested, killed, or just straight up left to rot on remote planets like we saw with Mayday and his troops. With the help of the Bad Batch, this network of clones will grow to be a formidable enough force to destroy or decommission Mount Tantis, I think. We know that the Empire has an alternative option for defective clones, an option that doesn't necessarily seem to excite the more military-minded people like Tarkin, but Dr. Hemlock seems to see clones as a resource that still have more to give to the Empire, albeit unwilling at this point. And I, and many others, believe that Dr. Hemlock is transforming these defective clones into the first phase of Dark Troopers. Remember the Phase 3 ones from Mandalorian? Those were the final result of years of perfecting an elite trooper that many believe begins with what Hemlock is cooking up on Mount Tantis. It should be noted that even if Tantis is destroyed or decommissioned in the Bad Batch, its legacy and influence will still be around throughout the Empire. We know this because the remnants of the Empire during The Mandalorian are still focused on cloning. So the experiments on clones at Tantis seem to be the last barrier preventing clones from being truly free from the Empire. So what's the long-term plan for clones after achieving this freedom? And that's really the question. Remember, the Rebel Alliance doesn't exist yet, so there's no bigger fight against the Empire to join with. So I believe this will be the opportunity for clones to instead enjoy a well-deserved retirement. We know that even Rex eventually steps away from the fight at some point to retire with Wolf and Gregor on a remote planet where they essentially have jerry-rigged an ATTE as a giant house/fishing rig or something on this remote planet. Eventually, they're found, though, by the Ghost crew and re-enlisted into the rebel fight. If Rex was able to retire, though, that makes me think that the rest of clones that survive will be able to retire as well. It wasn't a coincidence that the Bad Batch revisited Cut and his family. Cut was the clone who left the Grand Army of the Republic early in the Clone Wars to become a father and start his own family. So perhaps the reason we don't see any clones fight with the rebellion outside of Rex and his crew is because the rest of clones were able to break free from the Empire, spread out in the galaxy, and make lives for themselves. What about the Bad Batch, though? Is this their fate as well? Possibly, maybe for some of them. They're on the run from the Empire, and they're also kind of prisoners of Sid as well. This whole season has been dealing with the tension of running from Sid, running from the Empire, and looking for stability. The episode on Pabu gave us a glimpse of that. Joining with Rex and Echo's clone network in destroying Tantis won't make Sid or the Empire forget about them, but it will allow them to settle somewhere without feeling the pull Rex and Echo felt to save their clone brothers. Remember, this is where most of the clones are starting to be shipped off to. Echo joined Rex because he felt he needed to be doing more to help his clone brothers. And this is a tension that I think Hunter also feels, and even Omega. At this point, we can only theorize about the fate of the Bad Batch and the fate of the clones, but it certainly looks like those who survived the current fight could have the freedom to choose a much happier fate than simply fading out of existence in the service of the Empire with no chance for redemption. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think will happen to the surviving clones and the Bad Batch? Where are they during the events of the original trilogy? These are questions I anticipate getting answered in the Bad Batch, whether this season or the next season. But that's all I have for you today. I'll catch you in the next video. For now, may the Force be with you and have a great rest of your day.